Hi everyone, my name is Rachel. I am a knitter, a crocheter, a wife, a teacher, a mother, and I love to film videos just talking about my current projects as well as my current knitting experience when I try to look right at the camera and not get too distracted. So in one of my previous videos, I had mentioned that I was going to talk to you about some potential fall 2024 projects, and let's just go ahead and dive into it. Before I talk about some projects, I really hope that you would consider putting on your needles for the 2024 fall season. I wanted to share with you some highlights what I'm doing. So currently I'm working on the Solari sweater by Hoagie Locatelli. I'm doing this for the knit along, for her Ready for Fall knit along. And I had a night where I was just like, I'm ready to cast on a project. So I did. And I'm doing like a fade color. So I know it's a little hard to see, but this is what's happening so far. It has German short rows, well, she calls it wrap and turns, but it's the same thing as German short rows. I'm using my twice shear sheep row counter because it tells me what row I need to be on before I start doing the braid. And I've already done, it looks like I've done one full braid. Oh, this side is the actual right side, so let me fix that. There, this looks a little bit better. So this is where I've done one full braid and I'm starting the second one. It is a really easy pattern to read. I've been enjoying it so far. And the way I've been going about this is that I took a kit that I had purchased for a Stephen West knit along from last year. And I, for whatever reason, changed my mind about the colors but still wanted to do something pretty significant with the yarn because it's over 1,200 yards of yarn. And so I'm holding the yarn together to give me the weight needed for the sweater. And then I'm also fading in this fingering weight yarn that I got from Surella. This is their Stellina. This is probably one of their 25% sock base, but it's their Stellina base. And it comes with over 400 yards. So I'm using those two colors, and I've already shared with you that I'm also going to be blending in the other two colors. I actually went onto a site just to learn a little bit about how to do fading so that way I can do it properly. All right, I had to get a little sip of water because my throat was getting super dry. So I'm working on that project, slow and steady, not really rushing it. My next project that I do plan on casting on for another knit along is the Pressed Flowers cowl. I have my yarn, I have my needles. I did change my mind a few times about it, so I'm not going to talk more about it until I actually cast on. But my hope is that next weekend this will be on my needles and ready to really get into. I've been wanting to knit this cowl for a really long time and I've been procrastinating on it. So I'm really excited that Casey from Young Folks Knits is hosting this Mosaic Mayhem knit along because it's given me the motivation to do this particular project. And the third and final project that I'm currently working on is a fajola. I am on Sleeve Island and I've never really had that big of a deal about doing sleeves before. My biggest issue, I should say, that I've had with sleeves, and I actually learned a lot when I was making my champagne cardigan, which I'm wearing right now, is the fact that you really should keep up with your decreases so that way you can be consistent on the other one. So I had this genius idea. I was like, well, why don't I do both sleeves at the same time? Because then if I get these different ideas about doing the decreasing and when and where and how to do it, because I never really follow patterns when it tells me to decrease because of the shape of my arms. And so right now I am on Sleeve Island. I have 9 inches of sleeve done. I have to do at least 6 more inches in order to get the length that I want for my arms. And then if that comes to fruition, then I will be done. I will do the cuffs and that is it. Luckily, she doesn't have a long hem on it. As you can see with the pattern, it's simply stunning. So I am pushing myself to not give up on this and not just to take shortcuts because I'm notorious for doing it. If I find that I'm starting to get a little like wary of working on the project, I just put it down and work on something else so that way I don't have to worry about it. And which is one of the reasons why I'm going to stand up. I ended up finishing the pair of shorts I mentioned. So here are the shorts. The jog-on shorts that I had cast on early this summer. They fit so well. I really love them. They're short, like the way I like my shorts to be, but not too short where it's inappropriate. They're definitely more of a lounge pair of shorts. I wish the pattern had pockets or I knew how to make pockets because I'm definitely more of a pockets person. But all in all, I'm really proud of myself and how well this project came out. And I cannot wait to wear them as the months continue to progress and whatnot. And as I mentioned before, I'm wearing my champagne cardigan too. So that's the short to what just recently came off the needles, and I'm really am glad. And so again, every time I was feeling like, oh, I don't really want to work on the sleeves, I went to this particular pattern. I do have a couple of crochet projects that I probably talk more about next time, but I really want to just dive into some potential projects that you can do for fall of 2024. The way I try to break this up is around pullovers, tees, cardigans, accessories, including a hat, a couple that you can do around your neck or shoulders, and then finally on your feet. So let's dive in. So the first pattern I discovered, I should say, on Ravelry. If you're not on Ravelry, I definitely understand why people have their qualms about it and whatnot. But overall, I genuinely enjoy this website. It has introduced me to so many different patterns I would not have ever considered, as well as some designers that I'd never heard of before. And finally, I really have had a wonderful time interacting with other knitters and crocheters on their forum community. So I have nothing but positive things to say about it. Plus, it's been a wonderful journal for me to keep up with the projects that I'm working on right now. So one project that I thought about doing for the fall is a freestyle shirt. Now, in my particular area of the world, in New England, we have these fluctuating temperatures where it will start off really cold in the morning, but then it will warm up during the day and it will cool off in the evening. And I thought a tee or a shirt similar to this would be ideal to wear in this particular fall, because it's perfect to wear under a jean jacket or even to pair with another cardigan or a blazer. This is definitely a shirt I'm looking forward to casting on for work, whatnot. I have some ideas in mind about which potential yarn I'm going to use, but I haven't made anything for certain. With this pattern, it definitely calls for you to use a sport weight yarn. And if you do decide to do this, I would encourage you to check your gauge. I'm also trying to highlight or celebrate designers who aren't frequently mentioned, although Suzanne Merler, I feel like she is starting to get more recognition in the knitted community, but just in case, wanted just to give her a shout out. But this pattern, I already purchased it. I've read through it. It is very direct and stuff to the point, and it's also unique in some parts of the construction that I'm really excited about. I have recently cast on the freestyle sweater on my needles using this yarn that is a blend of merino and cashmere. And so I'm planning on using that or wearing that particular garment in more of the cooler months when we're transitioning out of the fall weather. Sometimes we have mild winters, and so I figured both this shirt and the sweater will be ideal for those days where it's cool but it's not freezing cold. Another project that I highly recommend casting on is a rainy day tee. So for 2024, this is supposed to be my season of cables. I was supposed to do all these different types of cables, and so far I've done a cable pullover, I've done a cable hat, I've done I'm working on a pair of cable socks, and I plan on doing a cable vest. My hope is that in each category of knitting, except for blankets, that I will have some type of cable garment. And I thought that the rainy day tee would be a really great in-between and a good palette cleanser. The way that this is constructed, I ended up purchasing this the second it came out. I fell in love with it instantly. I love the elegance and the simplicity of it, but at the same time, I thought it would be really great to have in those transitional months, both in the fall as well as the spring. So I feel like I can get multiple seasons with this. This is a pattern that calls for DK weight, where you're going to hold lace yarn held together with fingering, which is, for most people, it's mohair or using an alpaca thread. For me, I'm on the fence about what type of yarn I'm going to use. I have a bunch of yarn that I had set aside for other projects, and so I'm just trying to narrow my focus, but I think I'm pretty clear about what I'm going to do. It's in my project, so my hope is that I will move forward, that I will be able to move forward with this particular project, hopefully once my Frajola sweater is finished. But right now, it's just hibernating. I'm waiting to commit to it fully and make sure that the yarn that I selected is actual yarn I'm going to work with. But I think that this will be a wonderful transitional piece to do for the fall. Another great fall cast on would be the Maggie vest. I know that when this initially came out, many people looked at this to do for more for like the summer. And for me, I was thinking more about the fall because again, just to having that quick knit, number one. Number two, in the fall, in the early winter months, I don't know about others, but I tend to layer my garments where I tend to wear like layer upon, like right now, I'm wearing a sweater over a t-shirt. And there have been instances where I've wore my coat, my hoodie, and a t-shirt underneath. And I thought that this particular vest would be ideal for me to have at work, especially when I'm looking for like a palette cleanser and really just going into some of my DK yarn that I just recently rediscovered that I forgot that I had that might be really great for this particular project. And so with this particular vest, it calls for DK weight yarn. You're going to use US 4 3.5 millimeter needles, and you use between 735 to 1100 yards of yarn, which I think it would be really awesome, especially if you are someone who's going to like a yarn festival. This is definitely the season of yarn festivals that are about to emerge, and you don't want to spend an astronomical amount of money on buying yarn, because for me, I know that whenever I'm knitting a pullover or a cardigan, I need at least one skein of yarn for both arms. And so I find that if I were to do a vest, I would just need enough yarn for the body and for the collar and hem, and then I'm good to go. And so with that said, my hope is that if I were to cast on the Maggie vest, that while I'm at Rhinebeck, for example, I might come across some beautiful DK yarn that I just cannot resist and say no to. But for now, it is just in my queue. I'm hopeful that I will be casting this on in November. This will be perfect for like Thanksgiving, when I'm just knitting back and forth, interacting with my family while at the same time doing something that's pretty mindless. So highly recommend this particular item. And I do want to pause and note that with some of the fall patterns I'm suggesting, I have not actually cast on, or I may not have purchased a pattern. So for example, I have not purchased the Maggie vest pattern, but it is in my queue. I have, however, purchased the rainy day pattern. I have already picked out a yarn and I initially cast on, but now I'm having second thoughts about whether I want to move forward with that yarn. But even if I don't move forward with it, I do another. I have had a chance to read through the pattern, and it is very self-explanatory. The raglan increase are aligned with the cabling. You have very clear directions. She tells you where to put the stitch markers, so that way you can instantly make that raglan increase, and it can be a seamless transition from your collar to the body of the sweater. It is definitely one of those I'm very excited about knitting. And I've already mentioned that I own the freestyle sweater and freestyle shirt. The other pattern that I am really excited about potentially casting on, because I'm definitely filling stripes, although again, this is the season of cables, I'm also someone who genuinely enjoys knitting stripes, but I have never successfully completed a project that included zigzag stripes. And so with this particular pullover, which I think is called the Lecky pullover by Sarah Nolan, I'm hopeful that I can move forward with casting this on. I looked at the different project notes that people have shared about the pattern, and I decided that before I make a commitment with buying yarn for this and purchasing the pattern, I'm going to push myself to do a swatch first with the potential yarn that I have, and that if I have something in my collection that allows me to meet gauge and I actually like the colorway, then I'm going to move forward with it. Because what I've noticed is that I've been purchasing yarn with this fantasy about what it's going to look like, and then once I get it, I'm like, oh, that's not actually how I envisioned it, and I end up, scrapping the yarn project and having to repurpose the yarn for something else. And I genuinely don't want to go through that stress, because it does stress me out. So with that said, my goal is to start with my yarn collection and make a swatch with that, with one of the two yarns I was thinking that I had in mind. And if I end up not liking the swatch or the fabric, I can either A, scrap the project, or B, then take the steps to purchase a sweater quantity for this particular pullover. But I am excited about casting it on. It looks stunning, and I can't wait to read through it more. A pattern that I have not purchased yet, but I know will be purchased before the end of this month, is a sweater number 22, my favorite things. I have made several of her patterns. I made I made one cardigan, and no, have I made? Yeah, I made the one cardigan, and I've made the eyelet sweater, which is sweater number 19, if I remember correctly. And I can honestly say, was it a cardigan? Maybe it wasn't. But anywho, with sweater number 19, that's the project I made of hers that was the most vivid. I did cast on and made some pretty interesting progress on sweater number 20, which is her cable, all over cable sweater. But the reason why I ended up frogging that particular project is that I put it down to wrap up a test knit, and then other things happen in life. And I could not for the life of me remember where I left off at on the cable. And the way that the cable chart is done, it's not a very clean cable chart. Like whatever software she's using in order to make it, it's really hard to see. And so I was like looking at it and I'm like, I kind of see it, but I kind of don't. So with all that said, I am a little hesitant about doing this particular project given the experience I've had with the other two. But what's pushing me to reconsider is this lovely design here. I don't know what it is about this button. It gives me like this 80s, 90s vibe. I've always gravitated towards sweaters like this and never had a chance to own this in my own queue. And I was like, wouldn't it be great to own something like this? I love the color she chose, and I have similar colorways. I actually have a DK weight double Sunday yarn, as well as a DK weight navy blue yarn that would be perfect for this project. And then it looks like the hem, excuse me, the collar is twisted rib, which is actually my preferred. And I love this double knit band that's here with the buttons, and I even have the buttons for this. So I'm definitely very excited about this. And again, I think this will be a wonderful fall project that will allow you to get lost in stripes, because whenever, I don't know about you all, but whenever I'm knitting a striped garment, I really get caught up into it where I just want to finish the next row so I can cast on the next stripes, especially when the designer has been very intentional about the way the stripes are going to look. Veronica Lindbergh is wonderful at this. Her stripe hype dress was so much fun to knit. I did not want to put that down. I was actually sad when that project came to an end because I had such a wonderful time knitting that. But I am looking forward to sweater number 22, and I think this will be an excellent project for people to consider for fall of 2024. Another project where it has a simple elegance to it is a Sophie sweater by Susan Muller, excuse me. I'm definitely becoming a fan of this designer. I've made some progress in some of my journey, like, you know, doing research about how her patterns read and the success that she has with her patterns, and her rating on clarity is pretty high. And so I was like, you know what, I want to give more designers my business, and I definitely want to make sure that I, like, you know, spread it out to as many people as possible. Plus, with this particular design, it's so unique. I wasn't expecting like this V neck shape here and with the design. So I'm just fascinated by it, and I can tell that it's going to be a challenge as well. And so if you're looking for something to kind of like break the mold and not do the traditional pullover or the traditional cardigan, this really might be a good in between. And the great thing is, if you don't end up liking it, you might be able to do some modifications where you would just either doing it as a pullover or doing it where it doesn't have that V, or doing it as a cardigan. And she has two different samples here, and both of them look very lovely and very inviting to do. And what I also do, and I'm sure others as well, whenever I am in the midst of trying to make a decision about purchasing a pattern, there are a couple of places I go to. Number one, I start with the price. Is this a pattern that's like $8 or $9? Because if I'm spending $8 or $9, that means that your clarity rating and your overall rating needs to be 4.8 and above. That's number one. Number two, if a pattern is over $8, I need to see that this is transitional on multiple body types, meaning that people who are very petite, that this particular garment looks just as beautiful on them as people who are more full figured. And so that's where I start looking through people's projects pages and see how well that's coming through. And then I also look at the craftsmanship. How well are the notes, or the directions translating, so that way people at different skills are able to produce the same garment that they're looking for, something that they feel is beautiful. And so with this particular project, I have that in mind as well. So although some of the podcasts that I watch mention this particular pattern, I don't just rely solely on their experience with it. I also take it upon myself to look at others. And so these are three different versions that are absolutely stunning. and they took really meticulous notes. And then I just scroll through and just see like, what am I gleaming from looking at this and understanding of it? I love when people take like multiple shots of the progress that they made when they start like, well, it starts with this bell shape and then you're going to be picking up stitches, because it really helps you as a knitter as to make the decision. Do I want to proceed forward with this garment, or do I want to stop because it just isn't going in the direction I want to? So those are just some things to take in consideration as you're making your final decision about it. So I talked to you about the pullovers, both the T version as well as the more full traditional pullover. But where I would like to wrap up with the pullover section is with the throwover. Now, I've been going back and forth since I turned 40 about doing this particular pattern. I have been on the fence about it. Initially, I was going to do the throwback, which is the cardigan version of this particular sweater. And the reason why I've been hesitant about doing the cardigan version of it is that I feel like the color work on the throwover is, I don't know, it just looks like it flows better. It makes a little bit more sense. I like the way that the peaks look, and it is the exact same thing. And yes, I purchased a throwover and I purchased a throwback. I did a swatch for both of them. And it's the exact same colorway and the exact same pattern. But obviously with the cardigan, you have a break in the color work, whereas the throwover, you're just knitting in around. And typically for most designers as well as knitters, doing color work in around is probably more ideal rather than doing it flat going back and forth. So that could be part of the reason. And maybe it's also the hem, not maybe, it is. So the hem on the throwback, I'm not feeling, and I know I can make modifications to it, so that shouldn't be a deterrent, but in my warped imagination, it is. But so I was like, you know what? I really like the pattern. I really would like to do this. I purchased yarn for it 3 times. So I need to do it at some point. And yes, I purchased 3 different sweater quantities with the intention of making this garment, only just to change my mind again and again and again. And so after that, I changed my mind the 3rd time, I made myself just say, nope, don't buy any more yarn until you can fully commit. But this is, I think, will be a wonderful transition piece because it is called for worsted Aran weight yarn. And so you can potentially cast this on as in a later month, in the month of November, early December, where the yarn is a little bit thicker. You might feel a little bit more comfort with it. And maybe Spin Cycle might be having a sale where you'll feel at ease about spending the $38 to $42 of their skeins of yarn, or you might have some Spin Cycle in your collection that you may decide to do. Overall, it is definitely a pattern I'm hopeful that I will cast on before my 44th birthday, but at this rate, it doesn't look like it's happening. However, if you were on the fence of you know what, I'm all set with pullovers, I really don't want to do a pullover for the fall of 2024, consider doing a cardigan. And so I mentioned already that this is the season of cables. And for me, I've been looking for a really wonderful, thick, beautiful cabled cardigan. And initially I was considering several. The Cloud Peak cardigan was one, the second one being the Book Club cardigan, and the third one being the Velvet cardigan. And again, I'm trying to give designers who I may not be as familiar with more of my business. And so this particular designer partnered with Surello Yarn in order to make this cardigan. And it's beautiful. As you can see, it has a cable motif on the back. It has a beautiful motif on the sleeves. And what I've noticed for most of the cable cardigans that are knit seamlessly, that there's this odd working that's happening on the shoulder where it's a part of the design, but it's not necessarily the flow of it. So what I mean is that for me, I wanted something a bit more seamless. And what is making me hesitant, I'm sorry, I'm getting jumbled with my words. What's making me hesitant with the Book Club cardigan is that I don't really like the join between the cable in the back and the cable in the front. So which is what gravitated me towards the Velvet cardigan, because as you can see, there seems to be a seamless join between the back and the front. However, what makes me hesitant about this particular cardigan is about the transitioning from the sleeve, from the body of the work, I should say, to the sleeve. And so I'm not quite sure yet which one I'm going to do. I can also just always steek make a pullover cardigan and steek it as well. So that's something to think about. But all in all, this is definitely one of those patterns I have really thought about for the last year. The first time I saw it was last year, and I thought like, wow, that's absolutely beautiful. Plus the yarn, really, you can't help but really gravitate towards it. The yarn that they used for the sample was classic worsted, and it was looks like it was velvet yarn. And I do actually have some velvet yarn left over from a couple of other knitting projects I do primarily for kids, but it might be a really great opportunity again to deep jump into my stash. The other thing is that it does call for a US8, which is a 5mm needles, and it looks like it is size inclusive as well. So I haven't seen this pattern on Ravelry, so I don't know what others have done, and it's not rated on Sorella's website. So this is one of those that you may have to take a leap of faith and hope it works out. So this is the first cardigan suggestion I have for you. The second cardigan suggestion I have for you, which is one that I want to cast on tonight. It's called The Lintho by Natasha Hornsby. Now, Natasha's patterns is something I have started Moonstruck, which she's also known as. I have definitely gravitated towards her work. When I did the artist shawl, I fell in love with the way that she produced a pattern. Like, it was so clean and concise, and I felt like such a knitter making that particular garment. I felt so proud of myself, and I know I would feel the same way with this one. I've already made a swatch for this particular cardigan just to see what colors I like, and right now I've narrowed it down to like a wine Bordeaux red paired with a gray and a white, with the lighter gray being the main body of the cardigan. It calls for brioche knitting. It also, as you can see, has color work. So you do the brioche for the cuffs as well. So I am excited about doing the hem for that. And you don't have the traditional button band. You have this type of button band, which I thought was a really unique design in itself. And the way it flows, usually I don't like when the button band on the when the button band is in a different direction as the hem, but for some reason this works for me. And then the other thing that really drew me to doing this particular pattern was seeing the way it looked on others. Like this particular model's design, the way that the cardigan looks, I was like, wow, that's beautiful. I love the way that this looked on her frame, like how it drapes on her. Another one that I loved, the color on this, and this was what drew me into that. I love the sleeves. I love doing this to my sleeves, and I can see doing that. This one made it look so cozy and knit worthy. And I'm like, when I saw that, I was like, yeah, I definitely want to do it. And the great thing is, if you don't want to do the brioche collar or the brioche on the sleeves, you can also do something else. But I want to give the brioche a try. And her explanation of how to do brioche was so clear, and I actually felt like, again, a knitter by doing this. And I love the simplicity of the color work that you'll be able to do, and it's not all over. So this is definitely one that I'm gravitating towards, and I'm hopeful that I can cast this on sooner than later, and because it allows you to take on so many different colors. It's so lovely. So lovely. But yeah, so this is my second cardigan suggestion for the fall of 2024. Those are the only two cardigans I've come across that I absolutely love. And the reason why I haven't looked at any other cardigans, because this pattern was published in June of 2024. This is a shawl by Natasha Hornsby, also known as Moonstruck, and it's called Clint. Oh my goodness. This pattern is so beautiful. I want to knit so many of them, and it's not even funny. Now, obviously, Natasha Hornsby, hers is absolutely gorgeous. Look at this. Just take a moment. Just take a moment. Oh my God. But look at what her test knitters did. Oh my gosh. Look at what her test knitters were able to do with this design. Who knew garter stitch would be taken to this whole new intricate quilted level? I mean, come on. Seriously? Seriously. So I say all this is that I have fallen deeply in love with this pattern, and I am making myself pause on purchasing it and buying the yarn for it, because I'm hopeful that this might be my third and final yarn purchase at Rhinebeck. While I'm at Rhinebeck, I am going to buy yarn for the Bloom sweater. I have recently picked my colors, and I'll talk more about my Rhinebeck plans as we get closer to it. So I've recently picked out the colors I want to do the sweater. The other pattern that I was considering, I'm now going back and forth about whether or not I want to do this. So Clint is definitely the second place one right now, where I know I can go to Rhinebeck, look for some beautiful sport weight yarn, and make that purchase. So those two those two projects are the two that I am hoping to purchase while I'm at Rhinebeck. But again, I'm going to talk more about that when we get closer to Rhinebeck. But this, I thought, would be a beautiful shawl or a wrap, whatever you want to label it as, that you can do for that. Another stunning object that you can put around your neck is called the Modern Mudclath Infinity Scarf. I love infinity scarves, though. That was definitely my style of clothing for pretty much throughout the late 2010s and throughout the early 20s. It was due to my son constantly pulling on my scarves, the reason why I don't wear them as much as I used to. But anyway, I digress. With this particular scarf, one of the reasons why I fell in love with it is just a beautiful, intricate pattern that he was able to design, and it feels like you're going to be doing something new each section. So like you're going to be doing this particular pattern, and when you wrap this up, you have a row where it's like a little bit of a palette cleanser, probably a garter stitch or either a stockinette, and then you transition to another part. I'm assuming it's charted as well, and it looks like it might be a little bit mosaic over there, a little color work. So I feel like this will be a great opportunity if you're looking to expand and improve upon your skills. This is it. Another reason why I gravitated towards it is that it's using neighborhood let me try it again. Neighborhood Fiber Co. yarn, which I have a full skein of it in my stock. And so what I was thinking about for the contrasting color, to use the Neighborhood Fiber, because I have enough of that. And then I could use my Lolo Bean yarn for the main color. So his contrasting color is like this dove gray. And the main color obviously is the blue. And so for me, I would do whatever is a less quantity of yarn. I would do that in my Neighborhood Fiber Company yarn, and use my Lola Bean yarn as my other contrasting color. So this is, as you can see, it's number 24 on my queue. I've been eyeing it for a very long time and was just waiting for the right time where I can cast it on and really pay attention, because this is definitely not a TV knit. This is a listening to an audiobook while you're looking carefully at the pattern, maybe using an app like Knit Companion to help you with that, which, by the way, I still love my Knit Companion and I'm glad I've been using it. So anyway, I digress. So that's my suggestion for garments around your neck. For your head. Now, everyone knows about the Oslo hat and the Musselburgh hat. Even the Jason Cashmere hat has now starting to gain in popularity, and that is definitely one of my go-to patterns, and I hope that designer will never take it off her website. It's been for free for the last few years, and I hope it stays that way, but I would purchase it. I love that pattern that much. But another pattern that I had my eyes on, that's a stockinette pattern I thought will be a really fun one to do, is the Brownstone Beanie. This is a fingering weight pattern that calls for a 3.25 millimeter, which is a US 3, and a 3.75. So it looks like you're doing the cuff or the hem, or the brim, excuse me, in 3.25, and you're doing the main body in US 5, which is 3.75. And what I love so much about this particular beanie, that you can actually just use one skein of the Sonder yarn. So if you're someone who's been thinking about purchasing Sonder yarn, which highly recommend, I've been using their Haze, which is their Surrey alpaca, as well as their yak sock. Love it. Love it. It's like butter on your fingers, and I like the yarn so much is that I really want to make a full sweater with it. I don't want it just on my head and my feet, because that's where that yarn has lived so far since purchasing it, and I'm hopeful to do something more purposeful with it. But in terms of a fall project to do, especially if you need a palette cleanser after doing really intricate pullovers, or a really intense cardigan, or maybe a long-winded shawl, maybe a hat will help cleanse your palette. And giving Tori you an opportunity to get her shine might be great. There are really great hat designers out there, but this young person has done some really wonderful designs, and they're very interesting, and they're youthful but also classic. So I definitely would recommend this particular designer. Another designer who I was introduced to through Fruity Knitting. I was watching Fruity Knitting, and for those of you who watch, she does this Knitters Around the World segment where you get a chance to get introduced to different designers. And so, for example, that's how I was introduced to Andrea Amari, because she interviewed Andrea Amari at the very beginning of her career. Then she also interviewed Hoagie Locatelli, again, when Hoagie Locatelli was in the beginning of her career. She was doing a Knitters Around the World. And it's no different for Noma. And so I loved these socks. This was published in the ebook called Monday to Friday Socks. I ended up purchasing the ebook. And this particular pattern is toe up, but she has cuff down as well as toe up, and there's so many different variations of patterns. And there's 6 patterns, but it's not all the same one. And this one I gravitated towards. Again, love stripes, and the other reason why I gravitated towards because it has zigzag in it. So I'm hopeful is that if I'm successful at doing a zigzag pair of socks, that it will also translate into doing a zigzag for a garment, because I have 2 patterns, one I've already shared with you and another one that I purchased that it calls for this, like, ziggy lines, but I have, for whatever reason, been like, no, don't want to cast it on. So I thought this might be a really great one. Another reason why I gravitated towards this particular pattern is that it uses a US 3mm for the sock, and so which is a US 2.5, and I was surprised because this is fingering weight yarn, but the way that you have to hold the yarn in order to transition into the sock, it does add for a little bit more of a thickness, and I find that using the 3mm was helpful. I did end up casting this on and was working on this, but I didn't like the size that I cast on, so I ended up frogging it, and my goal is to cast it back on again, and so that I can work on it. But this will most likely be my next pair of socks I'm going to cast on after this. This is going to be my fall 2024 socks. So I'm going to wrap up with these cable socks sooner than later. I don't even want to bother showing you because I have literally just knit 2 rounds of the socks. I've been so busy at work, it's not even funny. But anywho, the coffee break socks. Again, I was watching Fruity Knitting, and I believe her daughter Madeline was, working on the pattern, and I was talking about her experience and talked about some of the modifications that she made to it. And I was like, what a fun, interesting design. And I don't drink coffee, but I do drink a lot of tea. And so for me, this would be called the tea break. And if I can draw a little tea leaf, that would be really awesome and translate it into this. But anywho, I really liked the design. I thought it was nice, whatnot. So I went ahead and added it to my queue. And as soon as I finish with the cable socks I'm doing right now, I'm going to cast this on. I want this to be my fall 20, because this gives me fall vibes. I actually have the yarn that picked out for it. It's all good to go. And so I'm ready to do that. But I am also ready to do a simple sock right now, where it's just a either a self-striping or just solid color or variegated sock, because I've been doing, not that I've been doing a ton of them, but the last 2 socks, the pair I'm working on now and a pair I finished before those, it required me to pay close attention to a pattern. I just want to do something where it's like mindless and I don't need to. That's where I'm at for the fall. I think for my fall of 2024, although this is really intricate and will require a lot of work around the ankle, I want that little bit of challenging engagement. But then once I've gotten through that, then I just want smooth sailing. And I think that these socks will give me that. It would give me that balance, because sometimes when you're doing something that is repetitive and it's not always changing in that repetition, like with the Frajola, although it does change, there's 6 rounds. There's 6 rounds that I pretty much have committed to memory, even though I still use the chart just to make sure I don't mess up, because I don't want to get complacent. But it is becoming a little boring. The high engagement that I had in the beginning of knitting 2 sleeves at the time, and ooh, this is different, has worn off. Whereas these socks, I really do feel I would still be able to maintain a high level of engagement because of the color work here. And then once I like get to a point where I'm like, I'm over it, I will be done and I will be able to do the foot of the sock. Whereas the Monday to Friday zigzag socks, my concern is that once I get over the threshold of, you know, knitting in and around, I might get a little bored. So we'll see, but it does have stripes, so that might help maintain engagement. All in all, I'm excited to cast on both of those, and both socks will be a part of my fall of 2024 that I will be doing. So that is it. That wraps up my suggestions for fall of 2024. I hope that you take some of the suggestions I have into consideration. As you saw, there were some cardigans, pullovers, some socks, all in this the description. I almost said speaker notes. That's all I've been saying to work. Ooh. Anywho, in the description, you're going to see every single pattern I mentioned. I will make sure that they're linked there so that way you can look at that and let that be your decision. And then finally, please comment and let me know, what are you going to knit for fall of 24? Because you might be working on something or planning to work on something I hadn't considered, and I might want to go ahead and purchase that. Also, quick little shout out for those of you who are looking for a new bag and you want to do some support. Black Pearl Magic has launched another version of her tote. So she usually does this more like vinyl plasticky totes that are just so cute and beautiful and so much fun. Or she'll make these beautiful accessories like this ma'am here. This is my needle case that I actually use, but she just did another version of a tote that I had to buy. I just bought it, so hopefully it will be here. Gosh, I hope it will be here by the end of the month so I can have it with me at Rhinebeck and put my new socks in there. So if I can hurry up and finish the socks I'm doing now, that would be my new sock bag. I'm really am excited about that because it's a canvas tote, so I think it's gonna be great. But anywho, I just wanted to share this with you. I hope that this was interesting and engaging. So if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. And thank you so much for spending your Friday night knits with me, or Saturday or Sunday or whatever night you do for knitting and crochet. Till the next time. Bye.